Students, so today we're going to take this mask off. That's what we're going to do. So today we're going to talk about the how to position weld. We're going to talk about your fillet weld out of 45. Okay. Uh, my welding jacket back up and on. So we're going to talk about our fillet weld on a 45. Okay. This is one of your out of position welds. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a fillet weld in the T position. You know how to do this. So we're going to set up a T weld. You're going to tack it on both ends. Then you're going to find a scrap piece of metal. Please do not cut a new piece of metal. Just find a scrap piece of metal and tack it to that scrap piece of metal on a 45-degree angle. Right? It doesn't have to be an exact 45, just as long as it's close to an angle here. As long as it's close to an angle, you can see I'm not exactly at a 45. You don't have to get a contact one. You don't have to get a square or anything like that, a speed square, and check the angle. Just as long as it's close to a good 45, we're going to be good. And then what I like to do, a couple of things. You notice that I tack it back probably an inch, a couple of inches, inch and a half or so from the edge. There's a reason for that. And then I also like to take my ground clamp, and I'll just clamp the ground clamp on there just to kind of hold it steady while I'm welding. Okay. You want to pull your table away from the wall and also away from your fume extractor. Move that fume extractor up and out of the way. And mine's a little bit longer than some of the others for whatever reason. All right, because you're going to need to get your head down here where you can see what you're doing. And also you're going to have this electrode at a nice 45 as you're dragging it up. Okay. And so you don't want to be so close to the wall that you can't get at a 45, nor do you want to be banging your head on the fume extractor. That's distracting. All right. So you want to pull your table into you a little bit, get to where you're comfortable, and then slide your electrode up in a nice 45. Like all the other weldments, we're going to do a 3-pass on one side and 2-pass on the other. And I'm going to do a 2-pass on the off side because it tends to be, there goes my bell. I'm going to do a 2-pass on the off side because it tends to be the most difficult pass. All right. And just set yourself up to where you're comfortable because you're going to be welding here for just a minute or two. Okay. What I like to do is I'll establish my arc down here. And I'm trying to work backwards here, so I can kind of show you what I'm doing. I'll establish my arc down here, and then I'll drag my electrode up. Establish my arc and drag my electrode up. Okay. Establish my arc and drag my electrode up. Okay. So if you're right-handed, you want that electrode pointed in the direction of. So I'm going to weld this way. So it's going to be kind of funky because you're not going to be able to really see what it is that I'm doing. But let me try to get this around here. I don't know if you're going to be able to really see. Okay, so I'm going to establish my arc, and then I'm going to drag the electrode up in this direction. Establish my arc and then drag my electrode up in this direction. Okay. And my amperage is going to stay about the same as working with 3/32. Again, I'm using wE7018, 3/32. I've got my clamp set there to kind of hold everything in place. Put on my gloves. All right, now let's see what we can do today.
Okay, I'm going to get over where I can see. I'm going to establish my arc on my base metal, and then just carry it up to my metal there, and then just follow it up. Okay, here we go. Again, I'm not making any type of motion. I'm just simply dragging the electrode, making sure that puddle flows between both pieces of metal in a nice 45.
Now, a couple things. You want to make sure that tack's good, because when you go to start cleaning the slag, you don't want your weldment to break. Okay, and you can unclamp it and lay it down so you can get a better angle with your chip and hammer. As well as getting a gooder angle. Good thing I don't teach English with your wire brush. And make sure you want to get all of that slag out of there. In industry, typically if you're outside, and even if you're inside, most of the time you'll have hearing protection in. The guys around you will have hearing protection in. And most of the time you're cleaning up your own work area. A lot of times you'll have a wire wheel to clean this up. You don't really use a chip and hammer this much as we do in my class. The reason we don't use a wire wheel in class as much is because I have other classes going on down the hall, and it tends to be a little loud when we get wire wheels and grinders and all of that going. Okay, so there's your first pass. That's what it should be looking like. Okay. Now your second pass is going to go in at a 45 at the bottom of that toe that we just laid. So we're going to go at the bottom of that toe, and it's difficult to see on the screen, but again, we're going to establish our arc down here. We're going to establish our arc down here on our base metal, and then we're going to come at the bottom of that toe that we just laid, again at a 45, and run it straight up. Now, this is a very common weld in industry. Not everywhere that we weld are we going to be setting up like this on a nice little table and just laying in it. A lot of times you have to weld, especially if you're doing pipe welding or if you're doing plate welding. There could be a piece that's already in position. You could be welding uphill, and so you may have to lean over something to get into that position to make that weld, Okay, and so this is a very common thing that you may have to do if you're in the welding industry. Getting out of that comfort zone, leaning over your weld, looking to see where you're at, and being able to follow that bead where you need it to go, Okay. All right. So let's lay the next one down and see what it looks like. All right. And as with all the others, I'll do about 2/3 of this one so you can see what it looks like, and then I'll lay the last one down. Again, I'm going to establish my arc down here on the bottom, and then pull it up. Okay, you're kind of looking over my shoulder, so you're not really getting a good angle because I'm welding towards you. All right.
All right, so here we go. I'm establishing my arc down here on the bottom. And then pick up that toe on the bottom and run it at a 45.
And again, don't be afraid to unclamp it to get all the slag off of it. This is the test of your ability to tack things. Because if this tack down here comes loose, then you know you didn't tack it very well. Okay. And there's your second weld on top of there. I know a little difficult to see on the camera, but you'll see when we get in the classroom. All right, there's my second weld. Now my third weld, I'll go ahead and set everything up here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Starting to get a little warm there. My third weld is going to, again, go to 45 right on top of that toe that I just did. And I'll weld up about 1/3 of the way so you can see part of that. But I'm going to, again, establish my arc down here and come up about 1/3 of the way. Again, I'm not making any motion with my electrode. Okay. For right now, your wE7018 is simply a drag electrode. It's just simply a drag electrode. Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to establish my arc down here, find where I want that weld at, and then go on top of the toe of the weld that I just laid. On top of the toe of the weld that I just laid. Okay.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
And again, we'll lay it down. And I'll have that all cleaned up nice and clean for you. But that's what it should look like right there down at the bottom. I went about 1/3 of the way up, or a little better for you. Okay, that's what your 3-pack should look like. My gloves are starting to smoke.
All right, now I'm going to do a two-pass right here close to me. Okay, I get an electrode here. And again, we're using the same principles that we've used on all two passes. I'm going to establish my arc, and then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to drag that electrode up, making sure that my puddle, again, is washing onto the top of my fillet weld here, all right, and making sure that I'm getting a good meld of the metal as I come all the way up. Right, not at an angle, just a little bit, but not too much as I drag that electrode up, okay? And so here we go. Again, establish my arc, establish your arc down here on your junk piece of metal so you can kind of see what's going on and then figure out where you need to be and then just drag it up. All right, here we go.
And then just watch the puddle as it washes up. Making sure you're running slow enough to give that puddle time to meld those pieces of metal.
Woo, that metal's getting hot. Look at it get red hot. Red hot. Boy, she's a red hot today. And you want to make sure that you get all this slag out between your weld and your base metal here. Make sure that there's no slag inclusion. Okay. That's what your first weld should be looking like on your two pass. Okay, on your two pass. And it's almost flat. It's almost flat. There's no real angle to it at all. Okay. And then your next pass, ladies and gentlemen, your next pass, again, we're going to establish our arc down here, and I'm going to come up at a 45, and I'll come up about halfway on this one. And you can push your table back a little bit on this one because we're not too concerned about banging the wall here. So we'll come up about halfway on this one at a 45. All right, my metal's getting pretty hot, so I'm going to be moving pretty quick so my weld doesn't run on me, okay?
And here we go. Establish the arc. Figure out where I want to be, and here we go.
Hammer time! Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. There is your final pass, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it should be looking like. There's my gloves burning as they smoke. Okay, that's what it should be looking like. Okay, that is your out of position fillet weld with your wE7018 3/32, ladies and gentlemen. That is your next weldment. Any questions? Let me know. I'll see you in the booth. This is Clark, and I'm out.